Good evening, and welcome to the December 7th, 2011 meeting of the Lake Forest Building Review Board. I am Peggy Vignacchi, Chairman of the Building Review Board. At this time, I ask members of the board to please introduce themselves.
Michael Black.
Maddie Dugan.
Stuart Trey.
Monica Ruggles.
Charlie King.
John Clay.
And would our representative from staff please introduce herself?
Kathy Cerniak.
Thank you, Kathy. The board is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, architects, neighbors, and interested citizens, to continue the long tradition that allows Lake Forest residents and businesses to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the needs and desires of property owners while balancing the interests of the community as a whole to preserve and enhance its architectural character and landscape streets. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Building Review Board, the types of projects that come before this board are those in which the property owners are requesting a variance to allow a home that is larger than permitted by the code, are seeking a demolition permit and approval of a replacement structure, or otherwise involve issues that could not fully be resolved by city staff. It is important to note that over 95% of building permits are issued by the city without the need for any board review. Thus, the board typically deals with the most challenging and sometimes controversial projects. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and fair meetings. To achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures, and all parties will be provided an opportunity to speak. These procedures are outlined on the agendas available at the back of the room. This meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our objective is to provide a review process that is thorough, fair, and without unnecessary delay. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes of the September 7th and the November 2nd, 2011 meetings. We'll first discuss the September 7th meetings. Does anyone have any discussion regarding these meeting minutes?
I got one question on page 9, second to last paragraph. Chairman Vignacchi pointed out that the board's vote in 2004 was 3-2 with less. Was that in 2004 or 2008?
That's a typo. It's got to be 8.
That was the only thing I thought.
Yeah, I recall it being 8.
Yeah.
The previous paragraph talks about 08. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be a typo.
Do you have any other comments? Okay, making that change from 2004 to 2008.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes of the September 7, 2011 meeting have been approved. We now have the meeting minutes of the November 2nd, 2011 meeting. Does anyone have any comments regarding these minutes? None. Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve them?
I move we approve the November 2nd meeting minutes as written.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those are also approved. Thank you. Our next order of business is a new petition. It is a request for approval of a new academic building, a science center, on the Lake Forest Academy campus located at 1500 West Kennedy Road. The owner is Lake Forest Academy. The representatives are Andrew Kerr from Lake Forest Academy and Peter Whitmer, architect. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening. Thank you.
Tonight we're going to show you Lake Forest Science Center, and this is just a kind of an overall sketch of the whole building. We've spent a bunch of time in the beginning looking at the location in terms of the siting, and let me see if I can work this. There we go. You see it? There we go. Okay. We looked at different various locations. This is the main drive into the academy. The stop sign's here. First spot was a building that would go here, south of the existing structure, and really it starts to impede into the space to the south. The second was enclosing this courtyard space, and we felt really by putting a building here, it really hampers a view out of this space and sunlight into this space. We studied this option quite a bit in terms of infilling between the two buildings and using some of the existing classroom space. But really what, in the end, the spaces in the lab spaces really didn't have enough natural light into it, and we ended up spending a bunch of money and basically creating windowless classrooms without having sort of borrowed light that comes in, and so that wasn't very viable. And we really came up with a solution to have a standalone building with a connection into the Performing Arts Center piece. This is just a master plan of the campus, and it fit within the campus of thirds, academics being on one side, athletics on the other, and housing in between. And so actually its building location is really sort of center to the whole campus. A couple other important ideas that we had was, one is maintaining this center green, which is basically a field hockey field, and it really is starting to come together with our existing dormitory that we did, the new sports complex here. I don't know, I'm sure all you've been out there. We just are finishing a dormitory on this side. This is that little building that we moved, the Lingerie. And we really have four sides to this. The student union or the cafeteria building here, our science building being here. So we have this active space, which is this field. And then we'd also like to set up this sort of secondary park space, student area, which would be more passive, meaning place to hang out, sit down under trees, spaces. So we want to start to create that space with our new building too. In color codes, this is red, so these are existing buildings that will be future projects. And also too, there's an existing dorm to the west here that these are some new dorms proposed for long-term planning. Circulation, just really these areas just show sort of main corridors of circulation. Actually, east-west is more pedestrian, so this being the biggest one that comes into the front door of the old Reed Hall, and these secondary pedestrian patterns that go through the campus. We wanted to maintain that and really enhance that. Oops, let me just go back here just a second. And then north-south is core, the main one being down through the center of the campus, which is mainly a pedestrian access, also vehicular, and then vehicular access as you come around the secondary one on the other side of the green. So that really, as the site sort of unfolds, this is just a little close-up of that. This is the existing Performing Arts Center. Here's our new building, and we really wanted to think about all the space around the building. These yellow arrows really are the student access to our building. So two outside ones, which are this one to the west, along underneath the loggia on the existing building coming through this space, and then the one on the east, and then an interior link that would link into the Performing Arts Center. Secondary access being very important, that there's a way through the building, both visually and physically, to get from the parking lot into the campus this way, that you can see through the building, through the center spine. Our landscape plan then sort of follows that idea and enhances that we have these park spaces. Let me just show the arrows here. These are the circulation patterns through the landscape plan. And then that we have these spaces, these park spaces for sitting and student activity, really lounging outside space in the front of the building, and then more importantly in the south or the west of the building, which is really on this main axis through the campus. And then we've created these exterior courtyard spaces really for scientific experiments that they have within the school that they can develop in these courtyard spaces between the two buildings. There's also an alley along the north side of the building which allows students and faculty to transpose into the buffer there. They've got sort of an alley of trees that go along this, and these pick up the secondary alley that starts to run down the side of the green. The building itself is pretty simple, and it's pretty, I mean, what we try to do is do things somewhat of a scientific manner, and we needed 8 labs, or 7 labs, and really we have one corner here which is toilets and some support space, and then it's got lab rooms in every corner, and they're such large size, they're about a third bigger than what the existing spaces are now, that they need 2 ways out, so that sets up some circulation. And so we have this center corridor space that really is open in pure glass on either side. It's not only a way to transpose and get into the classrooms, but it has learning spaces and spaces that kids can study out into that spaces, some lounge areas in the center of the building. Natural light's really important. What we have is 3 different ways of getting light into the building. One is this, the biggest way is the glass in the center atrium, which has glass on either end, plus a big skylight in the center of it, and light that comes in from the link. And then you can see here the classrooms, they have large windows in the corners, which are part of the learning spaces in terms of the lecture area. We need some flat wall for projections and for board space. And then in the back of the rooms, there are smaller windows which are above the lab counters, which allow natural light to get in the back of the building, or in the back of the classrooms. There's 2 different ways that it gets in. Structural system is somewhat interesting because we looked at a number of different ways of doing it, and what we're proposing is a precast insulated panel on the exterior, which will be bearing wall, and then a poured concrete columns and slab system that comes in. So actually we're going to stand up the walls, all 2 stories of them, and then we're going to come back in and pour the floors. And it's important, the interior, sort of the structure itself will be the visual in the inside, so that you'll see not only the columns, the concrete columns, but you'll see the drop panels where it picks up the shear of the load of the column coming through. So, you know, when you teach kids through these things, you can see the structural piece of it, which we feel is important. The insulated exterior panels are interesting in terms of how they're made, and the insulation value, and the finishes on the inside and the finishes on the outside. And there's a lot of interesting aspects to that we feel like it's appropriate for a science building. Here's just sort of the clean floor plans. The roof plan is a big bathtub, hides our equipment. I didn't show the skylight in the center, the big skylight in the center there. And then our visuals of what we're really looked at in terms of science buildings are, you know, I think the Apple Store is a good one. I mean, I think it's an iconic thing, and I think this idea of sort of clear glass middle stems from that. Just some other schools that have done science buildings in the past that we were looking at, a lot of natural light. And then the existing context that we're putting this building in. The existing manor house that's there, we've studied it a long time. You know, it's funny, I've looked at it for probably, I want to say like 18 or 20 years ago. And I was with another firm, and we were looking at doing a building. The first spot right here, a library, and we actually looked at it being a modern building. And so there's a lot of qualities they looked at, and then, you know, over the years, just understanding what the features of that building, how it's put together. And basically what it boils down to is it's a roof of tile, and then 2 materials that have trim and wall. And so, you know, we've responded in different ways, and we want to think about that building in a similar way. The other is the existing Walter Nesch building, you know, the concrete, and how when he designed that building, how he responded to the existing structure, you know, in its ideas. And I think when we went through the structural framing of this, how these things are put together and all that, it had some influence on how we did this new building and thinking about it. And I would say lastly is all the projects that we've done in the past, over the years, the Performing Arts Center, the dormitory, the building that we moved, and all the little details that we've come up with for all those different pieces. These are just some sections which show kind of how the windows work at the corners. These are floor-to-ceiling windows, and the windows in the lab space, this bathtub piece, this center atrium area, it's all glass. some design concepts that are important to us. One is these exterior gathering spaces that we talked about. We also feel it's very important that the building height really relate to the Performing Arts Center, so that this height, when you come in across here in the front and the back, that these eaves line up. And we're fortunate that our floor-to-floor heights really work with a science slab, because if it's too short, it doesn't really work. So we feel like that's important to have that continuity. The roof shapes, I think it's really important that we use Luigi clay tile, which is on the original building, and we used on all the other buildings, that's a continuum along on this edge that this building really fits in. Transparency through the center of the building. We're going to design this with LEED in mind, so we're going to submit it for a LEED certified building. So that we'll use a bunch of techniques which make sense. And it makes sense not only for any building that we do, but especially for a science building and teaching opportunities that we have with those ideas. These are some renderings which show the exterior. This center glazed area is going to be smoother. It's not going to, there's going to be butt glazed that come together without any mullions, caps on the outside. This corner windows then will have aluminum mullion caps, which so that you really read this as a smooth glass. There's this glass canopy that sticks out about 6 feet, which will have glass panels above the top, and then you'll really be able to look through that space. Here too, you can see the pilasters at the corners and the two colors, the light color and the dark color, which relate again back to the original structure and actually all the buildings that we've done over time at the academy. This is just a corner looking at the northeast. This is the existing performing arts buildings, these roofs lining up, and at these clay tile roofs, the line, you can see the canopy entry here. And then I'm sorry, I had that flip. I was looking at the west and the east. They're almost identical with the exception of one door location. The other thing that's really important is that from the parking lot or from the green in the back, that you can see into this building. So you can see the science pieces of it. You can see the classrooms, you can see what's happening, that it is a science building just from the function of the inside, just through the transparency of it. This is from the courtyard, or the green in the center, so you'll see the piece here, you'll see the classroom space, see the lab hoods and all the things in the back piece here. This is that green park space. These are just sort of diagrammatic in terms of trees and showing scale. To the space. I think the landscape plan has a little better detail on the particulars. There's more ground cover and more lower plantings along the building. It's kind of a combination of all those. I'm almost done. I have a sample here of the precast, and then I took these slides. Basically what I wanted to do was, this is the original, this is the theater building, and that's a little square here. And what I want to do is, from the parking lot, that this looks like the same. Like you can't tell, like it looks stucco. But when you get up close, you can actually see what the composite is. So you can see the aggregate, you can see the cement, you can see how that is put together. So it's different than the stucco. And again, just sort of like a scientific idea is that you can see what the materials are made up to make that concrete piece. And I have a sample. They've done a pretty good job. This is the first one that we've taken out. I'm really happy with this piece. This is the trim piece. What you can see here is this piece.
Peter, would you use the microphone, please?
We're going to get the trim piece is going to be out of this precast too, which will align more to this color. It needs to be a lot lighter. And then there'll be a reveal between the piece, and there'll be some offsetting. But what we wanted to do was get the colors to match up. So when you're in the parking lot and you see these elevations at the top and the bottom, then really you see the continuum. But when you get up close to that material, you'll see it is different. Just like when you go up to the old building, the white is actually marble in the old building. We can't afford marble, but you get up and you see that there's some differences between them. But there is some similarities. The other thing that's important, we can't ignore this building, whether you like it or whether you like it or don't like it. Walter Nesch's building's there, and it's very visible. So I think there is a connection between these two buildings too, with their transparency centerpiece and this transparency centerpiece too. That this idea of seeing through the center of the building, there's some continuity between these two buildings in that way. So it has somewhat of a. It's nice that it's sandwiched between these other, the dormitory and the other performing arts building. I just put this in the last slide. We've had some conversation, I think there was a letter written by the Homeowners Association, and they reviewed the project with that, and they had some concern about lighting and drainage and those sorts of things, which we do too. And one of the things, nice things about it, we just redid the pond and the detention in this area. It's always taken this into consideration as development of this site. So that'll be part of that amount of detention area has already been addressed. We are about 215 feet at the closest point to our property line. And this is the existing condition today. I just took this picture today. And so, I think what we'll do is look to make sure that this is sufficient, or if we need to supplement in some way, if there's some hole, to make it better in terms of lighting too. The site lighting, we're really not going to change. The only lighting that you'll have is really through the windows of the building itself. The parking lot's all lighting really stays the same. So with that, I think that's a lot of things to go over, but happy to answer any questions or thoughts or concerns.
Thank you. Kathy, would you please present the staff report?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Vignacci. First, I wanted to note that you do have a letter from the Academy Woods Homeowners Association at your place. They did receive a full copy of the packet that you received, and also had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Kerr a while ago. This project is another in a series of a number of projects. This project is consistent with the overall master plan for Lake Forest Academy that was developed a number of years ago. With respect to the drainage, over the past couple of years, city engineering staff worked at length with engineers from Lake Forest Academy to assure that the drainage on the property was adequately handled. In fact, fairly recently, one of the large detention ponds on the Academy property was enlarged. I think, if I recall right, it was over the last year that was completed. So in the engineering reviews, not only was the drainage considered, the capacity for the addition of this building, but also for the addition of future buildings. So that really was a requirement early on from our city engineer to say, let's look at the big picture, make sure we're not dealing with drainage incrementally as each building came forward. So that issue has been addressed. Certainly when this building comes in for building permit, there will also be engineering reviews at that time of the specific grading proposed for this site. So we are confident that the drainage issue for the overall campus has been properly addressed. Really the two areas of focus for staff, one is given the transparency of this building, we do recognize that the neighbors, although they're quite a distance from this building, certainly are concerned about the potential for light spillover. After discussion, we do understand that the lighting in this building will be quite subtle. The reason for the windows is really to allow natural lighting in, but as we review building plans, we will certainly look at interior fixtures to make sure we're not creating a situation where the transparent part of that central core of the building will be a beacon at night. In addition, to further address the neighbors' concern, if the board finds it to be appropriate, you may want to add some language to condition 2. When we do review the final landscape plan, the detailed landscape plan, you have the conceptual landscape plan in front of you, but maybe you want to add some language that directs that we specifically look at the landscape plan to make sure if in fact any of that existing landscaping between the residential area and the campus is thinning or is failing to thrive, we could require some replacement. But at least in our observation, we feel that that landscaped perimeter area is really quite thick. You did, just a few months ago, see a landscape plan for Ferry Hall, the new dormitory, that involved transplanting some of the trees from this area to really create a framework along the front, along the street, and along the front of that dormitory. Looking forward, we do want to work with the Academy on a campus-wide reforestation plan. There are a number of trees on the campus, large trees, mature trees, that really are at or near the end of their life that need to come down. So much as we did with Lake Forest College, to look at a reforestation plan that would occur over a 5-10-year period, we would see some replacement inches planted, but also acknowledge up front that there are some trees that are going to come down. And in particular, we want to make sure that the replanting is done with the diversity of species. I think over the last 10 years on campus, there's almost become a monoculture of some of the new trees. And in talking with the Academy, I think they're willing to work with us so that if there is some new infestation or some new threat to trees, that some may be affected, but it's not going to wipe out the entire new campus. City staff does support this project. It has been reviewed by, preliminarily by engineering staff. City arborist has reviewed the landscape plan, and we believe that is consistent with the overall campus plan for the Academy. And with the conditions of approval as suggested and perhaps enhanced, we recommend approval.
Great, thank you, Kathy. At this point, we will turn it over to the board for questions and clarifications to the petitioner or city staff. I'd like to start, Mr. Whitmer, could you please, is there a main entrance or are the east and west mirrored copies so that either one would look like it?
Pretty much mirrored copies.
Okay.
Do you want to pull that up?
Will you do any signage on those buildings?
We will, and it's hard to see here. But basically what we've done on the rest of the campus is there'll be a name recognition in raised metal letters really on one side of it in a kind of a subtle way. We have this on both sides of the building itself. We looked at doing something on the canopy, but it's almost too prominent location. You know, we thought on the side Pilaster will be better. I don't have a, it's basically, I don't know if you drove out there, you saw the metal, it follows the rest of the signage on the campus.
Okay, and why are you, why do you feel the need to connect it to the PAC?
What they feel is it really basically because they have, that's their main auditorium space, and they want to have science be able to get inside and connect to the other building in terms of having students not have to go outside and get in through that. So that there's a connection between. There is some thought process that, you know, we built this new building for the science teachers that's sort of Taj Mahal. We'd like to make the science as part of all of the programs. The other is that we have a stair that goes down here to the lower level in the basement of this too. There's a possibility of having expansion space into the basement space too. So that corridor, actually, that connection will actually have a way to get down into the basement without sort of going into the science building, which makes the access to the lower level better too.
So how will you connect it to the PAC? And then that whole connection piece, could you give us a little more information on that? And what is the roof on that?
Yeah, it's a flat roof. You can see just a little piece right here. There's a flat roof piece, and there's precast panels on either side, and then a window, basically a storefront window aluminum system that dots across that elevation. I think it's in the...
Are you showing major changes to the PAC to that building, or just having that?
No, it just inserts into the side. The interior of that building, there's a main band room in that right now, which will need to get subdivided into offices, and there's some interior work that needs to get renovated really to help that program.
Okay, so on your master plan, when you show that a large segment of it connected, you have that colored in. Is that just interior work as future?
Yeah, that's 100% interior work.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's another reason that connection works, is that it makes sense to renovate that space. They have an arts program that's really growing, and we need a new band, not a band room, an orchestra room, because the orchestra is too big for the existing room that they have. So we're going to create that too, and so that allows that with that connection piece to be part of that.
Okay. Additionally, you're calling it phase 1. Is there an additional phase to this, or?
I think we just use that because we use it as part of the school.
Okay.
There's a lot of phases. I mean, I think every phase we go,
Well,
we
as
raise
opposed
money, we
to
have more
us, an
phases.
additional phase to this specific building.
No, I think this building and the link will be part of that.
That's,
And I think any renovation that we would do to the band room or to the Performing Arts Center, if there's exterior, if we need to put windows in, there might be a possibility we would put some windows in the back of that building. We would come back in front of the building review board for that as additional phase.
okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Peter, can you address the landscaping in the bird sanctuary area as far as it might impact the lighting in the connection to the neighbors to the east?
Sure.
I mean, it looks like you've got some pretty decent trees around the building
Yeah, I
itself,
think
but-
the idea is to have, one is that these trees are more ornamental and lower, and deciduous, so that the light still comes into the south of the building in the wintertime. So I think that this will actually shield, at least and somewhat more so when the leaves are out, the glass in this piece in the center. So, and I think, you know, this grid of trees across the front of the building, again, will shield some of the light that comes through the building to the neighbors too.
And the connection's only one story.
And the connection's only one story at the lower level, right?
Okay.
I have a question in regard to the light spillover. Typically, this building is not used in the evening.
Correct.
Not that it couldn't be, but as the way it is now and looking forward, they're not going to be taking classes in the evening there.
No, I think the only lighting you'd have in there would be night lighting, which would be
Yeah.
a very diminished level. Actually, our LEED certification kind of requires that too, that we turn, turn off lights when you're not in there. All the rooms will have occupancy sensors for that too.
So I don't see it out of a second story or out of a high window anything because it's in use or anything like that.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Peter, I have a couple questions. Back to that connecting link where you connect in at Cressy. It looks like the floor elevations of the two buildings are different, so how do you transition or step down?
Actually, the floor elevations between this piece of the building and ours are lined up. The floors are lined up on that.
Okay.
Yeah, this building the Performing Arts Center has a bunch of different elevations because there's a theater that you slope down on this side and it gets lower. But fortunately, what we did is we lined the floor elevation of this building with Cressy's lobby in this corridor here, so this goes flat across.
So the elevation isn't quite right, so then that
Yeah, on the
that
east
roof,
elevation it's showing.
Right,
What's it? Is it a little bit low?
yeah. The east elevation shows them
Oh, does
different.
it?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. You're right. It's about 1.5 feet lower. Yeah, you're right. It
So
is
how do
about
you
1.5 feet lower.
transition?
We're going to have to ramp through that. We're
About
going
a-
to have to ramp in the link.
Did you say about 1.5 feet?
It's about 1.5 feet lower.
Okay.
Right.
then you have that outside staircase on the north side of Cressy. Is that connected into this? Can you get into this link from
No,
there?
you know, we looked at the possibility of doing that. That's an emergency egress out of the basement. There's an arts room and a photography room down there. We're not going to enclose that as part of this. We thought about it, but really it doesn't make sense to tie those two together because it comes into the center of the classroom on Cressy's side on that. So that is actually going to be still an outside stair, just the same way.
So then that roof over that connecting link, that's the same height and width of the banding that goes across the front of the building?
Right.
And that'll be concrete?
That'd be a concrete roof, right?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be poured concrete.
Okay. Then, I wasn't clear on between the renderings and the elevations on the windows. Is it the intent on the building for the corner windows to go to the floor?
Yes.
And then the ones in the interior, there's a concrete panel?
It's designed to look like a panel, like an insert panel, but it's actually going to be part of the precast. It's actually the trim color. And basically that concrete panel is at the millwork where the countertops are for the labs in the back.
Okay.
In the lower windows that go to the floor, we have an operable piece to the bottom, be an awning, so you get natural ventilation through those spaces and that you can get to them. And the idea, again, is that, you know, we get as much glass into the classrooms so that you can see out
as much as you can.
In the floor plans, and it looks like you have those flat panels or whiteboards in each of the corners. Are those kind of in front of those windows, or how does that work?
I think the best one would be to look at the corner. So these windows go down to the floor. So that's floor to ceiling windows. Now it's subdivided as operable. That panel right there, there's the white band piece that goes through, and then the white trim piece. But that panel right there, which is about 36 inches high, it comes to the back of the counter, is actually precast too.
Yeah,
It's
what
a
I,
different color.
really what I was referring to is like on the floor plans in the classrooms,
Yes.
it looks as if you have a board in front of those windows. You know, and
Oh, I know what you're saying. In the corner?
In each
Right.
corner.
Yeah, those are drop-down screens.
okay,
Yeah, they're drop-down. Okay,
I see.
what we have is, you know, it's funny because these rooms don't want to really have any windows because we need all the walls to put information on it, either storage or projection or whatever. So what we have is we have fixed boards on the front. We can't really, you know, when you need to drop down a screen, our thought is that we could drop them down in the corner to add another surface to project information on. So that's really what that is. Okay,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yep.
You know, the other thing is as classrooms is that we have them set up in different ways. We like to set them up on the 45 too, so kids are not like rectilinear in rows, and so that they can look basically out through the corners. And so, you know, the idea is not to have this thing in a rigid sort of kind of learning. It's more flexible, but that makes sense what you're saying.
so then the horizontal banding that goes across, you're going from a masonry to metal to masonry, is that right?
Just in these locations where the concrete floor slab is right there, that's the only piece. And then in the front atrium where the steel beams come through the floor slab, so there'll be a metal closure panel here and a metal closure panel there in those locations.
But the other windows that have
The other windows will be concrete.
concrete.
Yeah, it'll be part of the trim color.
Okay, one of the things when I was looking at the building next door, the Atlas Hall, where you have got that banding and the arrangements of the windows on that structure, and it becomes a very horizontal type of structure with the arrangements of the windows and across the facade. And then looking at the front of this building and the windows going from floor to ceiling, it starts to become more of a vertical type of a element. Is that the intent of it, or is that what you're thinking?
I think one of the things is that, you know, the thought process is this is more open in terms of getting enough, you know, that when you drive in and look at the main building, Fort Hummel, and Corbin, the education building, that you see in and see desks and offices and people, that we want that same sort of idea in this building. So I think that the horizontal line will still be the continuum along in terms of adding it, but I think just that transparency of you know, having that much natural light going in and out is important and it's really being the function of this is a classroom building, and that other one pretty much wants to be a dark box. I mean, it's a theater building. It doesn't want to have windows into the theater space, so.
Okay, and a question on the precast panels, the exposed aggregate. How coarse or how much texture does that actually have?
This is it.
Do you think at the base of the building with the splashing of the rainwater and whatever, will there be any discoloration over time, or is that a concern? Or
You know, typically we haven't had a ton of problems with that because we have the gutters that go on that and catches the water on time. And so,
Yeah.
you know, when we don't have gutters on a building, yeah, I think that will be a problem. But, you know, we haven't really had that much of a problem. Usually it's actually, one of the tricks of building this building is protecting those panels and those finishes during construction.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that you have to really worry about. So it is concrete, so we can clean it, and, you know, we can be pretty harsh to it.
Okay.
Where if it's more of a natural stone.
So then,
that's a problem.
talking about the gutters, you don't really have a detail on it. What is the intent of that?
Yeah, basically what we want to do there is have a very straightforward, straight bended gutter, not a K-gutter. Again, a little bit more modern and slick piece to it. So that would be then the brown color, which would pick up, and that would be just a straight gutter piece and fascia. Then underneath the soffit will be a metal soffit panel underneath, which will be then the cream color, which will match the other one. But we will not be doing the decorative brackets like the auditorium or the Performing Arts Center or the dormitory.
Okay. That's all I have for now.
I have a follow-up question to when he was talking about the, you mentioned the screens in front of the windows. That being said, are you going to have any sort of window coverings, window tinting, window?
We'll have interior window blinds that'll come down on the interior
Automatic?
to black.
Well, just because it would then offer a solution possible to the nighttime for the neighbors.
It's really hard to say that they'll always be down and all that. Yeah, when they project things in, they need dark, especially for doing experiments and that sort of thing. You need to black out, especially in the physics rooms. They have to have blackout curtains on those, so they'll actually roll down over the windows to make the room completely black. But you know, in that center atrium space, we may have some solar screens that come down over the face. But I don't think, you know, I'd hate to say that, yeah, that's going to stop the light from coming through, because you know, controlling that is more difficult, even though we have the ability to do that, you know what I mean, in terms of getting people to close all the blinds all the time, every night. It doesn't usually happen.
Okay.
What about handicapped accessibility to the second floor? Is there an elevator?
Yeah, there's an elevator in the center core.
Okay, that's, it isn't labeled, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and do you have any plans for use in the basement?
We have a lot of plans, none confirmed at the moment. One of the things, a couple things that we're think that we'll do down there. One is that we put some area window wells in the side so we get some natural light down in there. Storage on the campus is a huge deal. Space to do like robotics testing. They make robots to run through a track. It's a great space for that. Those sorts of things. So those are ideas that we're contemplating right now for the function of the basement. But at minimum, it's going to be storage. And one of the ideas is that the science rooms have their own prep storage space, but the basement also can use for group storage. Since we have this elevator in, it's almost as easy to roll your things into the elevator, take it down to the basement, and then store it in there, and then everybody has access to it and come back up.
Thank you.
I've got a couple questions for you. First of all, can you kind of explain the rationale that why you chose the simplistic rectangular mass, whereas a lot of the rest of the campus has more complicated footprints?
Basically because of physics and economics. One of the things I think that makes sense for this building is, you know, the smallest amount of skin that we can have and the biggest amount of volume in the interior would be a sphere. Trouble is, spheres are hard to build. The next one's a cube. So we're going to try to make it as cube as we can. The next is that, you know, we have these science rooms that are rectilinear in size. So what we're trying to do is I think, make a really clear rationale. I mean, I think that it makes sense because it is a science building to have it sort of, this is the formula and this is what it ought to be. And there is something nice about the simplicity of the straightness of that building. I mean, basically what we want to do when you turn into this campus, this is not a scream at me, look at me building. This is you know, I think when you turn the corner and look there, you'll see trees and a clay tile roof. When you get into the parking lot, you'll see clear glass. You'll say, "Oh, this, you know, this is different." When you get up close, you see that the stone aggregate, if you know, it actually came from Illinois or Wisconsin, the stone, and the cement was part. You know, so it has these layers that doesn't need to be, you know, all those curved linear pieces or all these different pieces added together. And so, you know, that's kind of been the evolution of the design of it.
Okay. And then going with that, you know, how you're just going for this, you know, basically a modern contemporary box. but yet you've put the clay tile traditional roof on it. Did you look at any other kind of roof forms? You know, for example, you know, the Walter Natch doesn't have the clay
Right.
tile roof. So did you look at any other type of roof massing?
We looked at a lot of different thoughts, and actually, you know, we looked at it as architects, and we looked at it as trustees, and we looked at it as, you know, a lot of people looked at that, and we kind of felt strongly that that we have to be contextual to it. You know, that we have to understand what the original building is, and that we have to use sort of these true materials. You know, like you know, one of the things is if you did that massing and it was asphalt shingles, I wouldn't have any roof on it. I mean, let's not do the roof. Let's just have a Walter Nash building. Let's have it flat. But that we're using, you know, clay tile, the real thing, you know, I think that gives it some permanence to it. And it's this kind of balance between the two, of being Walter Nash and being the traditional, is our thought process for that.
Okay, I got a couple other questions for you. Can you explain what I see you have a canopy at the entrances. Could you just tell me what the materials of that would be and the color?
Basically what it is just cantilevered steel beams out from the concrete frame that are supported with tempered glass panels that sit on top of that. So it'd be a very transparent piece, but it has shadow on it. Okay. You know, it's basically just a functional way to keep the water off when you get into the building. And I think it adds a little bit of a detail to that front, because otherwise it's really very stark. You know, I mean, it adds. And you know, the building, when class changes, you do have, you know, 20 kids out front trying to get in when it rains or that sort of thing. So it has a real functional piece to it too.
Okay. And then I know there was some discussion about the metal enclosure at the windows.
Mm-hmm.
Does that metal would be the same color as the concrete trim band? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the idea. Is the spandrel, like that spandrel piece right there. Yeah, that we would match that up with a metal that would, when you get up close, you'd see it would be part of the storefront system, and it would be metal, but it would match in color to the trim.
Okay, and then did I hear correctly that the gutter is brown though?
Yeah, if you look at all the original buildings and all the others, the overhang, the fascia piece is actually brown, and so that face and that metal will be brown, and then the soffit underneath is cream, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is that when you're inside that building and you're looking up at the windows, you're not looking at brown, you're looking at light color versus a dark, which makes a big difference from inside the building itself. And again, I think it's just a small detail that kind of, again, ties back to the original structure. Okay. And all the other buildings that we did do that sort of similar idea in color hue of that. The other is that face of that gutter and all gets dirty all the time. It's better to be brown and be dirty than be white and be dirty. I don't know what that sounds like, but it's kind of the truth.
I think that's my questions for now. Thank you.
Just one question, Peter. The sidewalks on both the east and west side going to the main entrance, and then kind of as you go into some of those park areas between the Performing Arts Center, you got quite a bit of concrete there, as you can tell right there. Is that going to be just regular concrete, or are you going to do some kind of treatment there, or what's kind of planned? Because it is quite a bit of surface area there.
Yeah, I know, it is. And I think what our thoughts are right now is that we've done some exposed aggregate concrete in decorative areas, and that the front walk piece, actually, I think we show this wider than what the landscape plan is. My thought would be is to have this as an exposed aggregate type concrete, and then the paths that are going through, we've actually played around with some different pervious concrete ideas in those other paths in the parks. The one thing with pervious concrete, when you're trying to put salt on it and shovel it, and it don't work.
Yeah.
It's really bad. So I think in areas that we don't have to worry about too much about shoveling and all that, we could look at a more pervious style material in those areas.
Would you think maybe of downsizing that area a little bit? I mean, I understand maybe you want a little wider to accommodate 2 students walking, but I mean, right there you can get about 10 on that walkway.
Yeah, I think on this, I agree with you. I think it makes a lot of sense. On the landscape plan, it's smaller. Our renderer didn't talk to the landscape plan. Let me see if I can pull this up. There we go. Oh, no, I covered it with arrows. Let's see, I think we can look at the amount of impervious and see if we can limit that. The one thing is, I mean, there's 400 kids on this campus. This area back here, 400 kids can be here, so you can actually have 50 or 60 kids out at lunch. I mean, it's not just for this building, so we have to think about that. And really, it becomes a big mud hole. In the front, I think we can limit it, because I think the amount of kids, when we did the dorm, it's a pretty big wide walk, and that was the same idea. I was seeing kids would hang out there. Actually, they don't hang out in the front very much. It's really the back. So I think we could look at, cutting the amount of pervious area, or impervious area in the front, and make that. And now have them sort of identical front to back.
Thanks.
Well, I think the question of pervious versus impervious, would come as it relates to your engineering. I'm assuming currently that front parking lot is used somewhat for detention?
No.
Not at all?
Not at all. No, it's all in the pond. It's all, actually you can't see it. It's back about a half a mile away.
The pond that's behind?
In the fields, they're back in the corner. No, not the one you come in. It's actually on the other side. Behind the soccer fields and all that in the corner there.
Is that the intention, to somehow get water there? Because I know the site's flat.
No, yeah, it's all pipe. All these drains all go out to that.
Okay, and the
Yeah.
engineering's been done? And,
That was
by the city?
done a while ago, yeah.
A question for Kathy, is the location of the building any purview of this board, or is it got to go to Planning Commission and CBA as a special use process?
The overall campus master plan identified academic area, residential area, and athletic area. So the plan anticipated further growth on the campus, and this is consistent with that plan, so there is no further action required by any other board at this point.
Then I guess my question is, Peter, this seems like the first choice for a location. It seems like you looked at 3 others, and I just wondered if, why was that viable at all to consider others, or because this does seem the perfect place.
Quite honestly, this wasn't our first choice.
Really?
I really thought about integrating the buildings together more by, because this idea of let's just make one big classroom building that's part of the Performing Arts Center. And our program grew to a point, a couple things. One is, I really like the space that's created between, I'm showing this just over here, the existing education building and this edge. If you drive by here, it really gets a nice vignette. If you look down there, there's a tower on that piece. And I think that's kind of be a shame to ruin that space. The idea of campus, this is really not, this is more of a college campus than it is a high school campus. And the idea of having separate buildings that you go into is more a collegiate idea than it is a high school idea. So I like that. I think it makes sense. And I think the Academy is really on board with that. The other is the other space that this creates with this one-story piece. You still see straight through here, and you see the chimney of the old laundry. And so again, you get this creation of this vignette that you come through the different pieces. So it seemed to make a lot of sense. When I put this, going back to why I said this, was when we did this, we erased that piece of that view between, and this idea of the individual buildings. And I think it lost something. I think the campus lost something too with that. So it seemed to make sense to do it. I think the other solutions on the other side of the courtyard really mess up the existing space. I think what we're looking for in future projects is to enhance that space, and by adding another building in over there, which is really off to the one side, just didn't make any sense to us.
Yeah, and I would agree, and I think what I like about the building, and maybe this should be in the form of a question, but the overall massing of this being maybe oversimplified, because in itself it would probably need some, to Monica's question, some more articulation to be a standalone building and be aesthetically pleasing. I think because it relates to the other buildings and it marches along in a sequence of as you travel, I think it works well to have it simplified. I'm understand the contemporary concept. Just some other questions I had on some of these details that more or less were covered by other people, and it's nice being last because I have fewer questions then. Downspouts.
Mhm. We're gonna have exposed downspouts coming over the corners. We did not show those on the, we're not gonna have interior downspouts. The roof area, I mean, we'll have interior downspouts for the big bathtub in the middle, but the exterior ones, and they're gonna be centered on those pilasters on the sides. We didn't show that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's an opportunity, though, to also consider putting them someplace to break up the massing of the panels as you go along. But,
Yeah, you know, one of the things is in the renderings, the joints of the panels and how the pieces fit together. It's hard to really reflect that in those renderings. And I think it's interesting as we're working with a precaster and how big you can truck something and how, what the economics of it and how the joint falls together. We're actually thinking the joint between the panels being actually pretty good size, because the two pieces of concrete that need to fit together. So you're going to have this secondary level. If you look at the elevations, the lower elevations, those show the joints between the panels. So I think it does pick up that level of detail that actually, like Corbin, doesn't really have because it was all poured in place concrete, all like one big monolithic slab.
I think it needs something. I need, you do have a hip roof with, the Ludovici tile. You are relating to some buildings that, were residents of Armory at one point in time and have articulation. And the one building, Performing Arts Center has brackets underneath the eaves and that kind of thing. So I think you can oversimplify it, is my point. But my questions were, these panels that underneath some of the windows as they relate to the aluminum band board. I'm assuming those panels are aluminum?
No, those panels are going to be the smooth.
But the band.
It's always the same as the band.
Well, that's not what the drawings are showing. They're saying the band under the windows is a metal.
Just in that one, just in the corner, just in the corner piece.
Just on the.
Yeah, because that's where the two storefronts come like right together, and we don't have a. Okay,
I didn't understand that. And then.
Yeah, it's a little.
So
bit
when I get to the north elevation, and I'm looking at panels above these windows, or the band board above these windows, that's all precast. The north elevation.
North elevation.
You
Okay.
can see it here on your perspective, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking we could.
So through the trees there, as you look, above those windows is concrete.
Yeah, this is concrete above here, and that's concrete there.
And concrete
that little
above.
piece right there is metal, because this is going to be one piece of concrete,
Understood.
and that's one piece of
All right,
concrete.
keep going. Now and that's what?
And this is concrete here, and concrete
Now
up there.
tell me, what is the difference in the plane between the panels and the header?
The pilasters stick out about 3 inches.
So the horizontal band is out 3 inches?
No, the horizontal band goes with the panel. So it comes out, it's flush here, it goes, the pilaster, if you look at the original building, this is the way the original building is detailed. The stone, as the corner pilaster, vertically, this is flush.
Okay.
There'll be a 3/4 inch joint between this and this is a little V joint that separates these two pieces.
Okay.
The wall goes, then you have a little corner piece here. This little detail here is actually, this will be flush, and then there's a pilaster here that sticks out. So this will stick out about 3 inches. So these pilasters stick out, and all the other things are flush.
Okay. Well, I like that, but now we go to the window.
And then that goes back to this plane, which is these pilasters are here. This one.
Well, let me tell you my concern. Is the panel under the window and that horizontal band that's above the window below, are those in alignment? In that, are they going to get lost? Does there need to be a change in plane
Between these
that
two?
read properly?
That's funny you bring that up. There might want to be. There might want to be. I think about that.
I would say, at least an inch, maybe
Yeah.
2, hopefully 3. But in that panel too, I think there's an opportunity maybe for some articulation or some other something other than just flat. And I'm not encouraging it one way or another, I'm suggesting you study it.
I mean, basically, what I was really,
Opportunity for concrete.
yeah, no, I know. That's what, one of the things I was really pleased with when I came back, not with the smooth piece of it, you take it next to limestone, it looks just like limestone. So that trim piece will look like a natural stone. So I'm thinking if those faces of those panels actually look like stone, it's hard to decorate stone. So, you know, it might make sense that they're all plain. I understand what you're saying. I'll look at that and think about that, though. I think you have something with the stepping the panel back a little bit from the frame.
Yeah.
I think that might make some
Should we
sense.
make that step?
Yeah, just a
condition
little.
approval?
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, I think it makes sense.
And then I wondered why, and maybe I'm mistaken, but the second floor windows as they stop at the soffit, is that just a mullion up there, or is there any kind of a band that continues along the top as a frieze board, so to speak?
The mullions, there's
Go up
an
right
awning
where the
there,
soffit
and then
comes
that
in.
goes straight up to the soffit. So there
So
isn't.
there is no band
No,
at
at
where
the
the
top.
soffit meets the wall? Did you consider putting one in?
You know, it seemed kind of frivolous. I mean, I think this is flipped around upside down. I mean, here we need this band going across here because there's some egress doors out of here, which sets the heights of this, which sets the doors. On the other one, I flipped it around because we really have this band that comes across that lines up with the windows, with the top of the countertop that comes across, and then allows me to have an operable that kids can reach and do down below. And so it seemed like to have another band there, really the scale gets kind of funny because you have too many mullions in
Well, I'm not saying
in
at the
space.
mullion, I'm saying at the head above that, the frieze. Because the buildings to either side, I mean, the one, the Performing Arts Center has a heavy frieze board and it has the brackets underneath.
Yeah,
The dormitory building,
I think, but you look at it in comparison to Walter Nesh's building. That's really simple. I think I'd keep it more simple. Yeah, I think I'd keep it more simple. I mean, that's the intent of it.
okay, so those are my questions.
I want to go back to the windows. Are the windows on the east and west elevation the same size as the north and south? And what is the width of those windows?
Okay, the width of these, I can just go through these guys right here. That's 3'4" wide, and that's basically set with a door width, so that all the windows are consistently in the same width, this wide. On the pieces of the storefront piece here are not identical to the side. There's two different sizes. If you look, let me show another rendering that shows this. This is probably better. The size of the side glass here is basically the same. This is a pattern that goes across, okay? When you come up, the width of these windows here, we took out, I think your elevation actually shows a mullion here in the center, which we've eliminated when I saw this rendering.
Right, no, it
Because
says
it
it's
doesn't-
butted, though.
What's it?
It says it's butted.
What's that?
It says it's butted
Does it?
glass,
Yeah. It didn't look right. But behind here, you'll see a shadow line because there's actually a vertical mullion in here, so that we're able to have this clear span. I think we're looking at these divisions to be the same as widths as these side pieces here, so that there is a 3'4" width, and that there's a consistency to that all the way around.
Okay.
I could tell you, it's pretty difficult to work in this module to make it all work out when you want to butt an end wall and an end wall of glass. Like these sidewalls are going wall to wall. You know what I mean? Like if there's a return, I got 3 or 4 inches I could play around with,
Right.
but there isn't. It's got to be flat on those sides.
What about the north and south elevations?
Those match up with these sides then. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
the north and south match up with the modules here on those ends.
Peter, how does it work with life safety on that first floor? That's one of your egress points, is that very end windows there on that facade there?
This guy's a door, an egress door out of the basement,
Okay,
this piece here. And then the one around the side, on the other side, that's a door out of the classroom that goes outside.
okay.
Like, yeah, because these classrooms are so big, you have a chance to have more than 50 kids in one room, so in terms of square footage wise. So that's what set up the whole module of these windows, is that a door fits in one of these.
Okay.
And that really set the module.
That's what I thought, okay.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Peter, on the east elevation, the other side of this one, on this side you have the door right offset to the,
Right.
did you give any consideration to windows on either side of the pilasters on the east elevation?
The problem with that is that's classroom space, and I need that for board space, because we're really limited. That's, the wall here, and I need all that for blackboard, not whiteboard or projection space. So we did look at that. We actually looked at, in the original scheme I had, was to split these windows in half and have half here and half there. But we really felt like we wanted all the glass in one spot, so that, you sort of got this big view out of the corners. When you're sitting there and you're daydreaming, you can daydream through the corners more than you can on either side. The other problem too is glare. More the windows you have, when you have more things, you can have shafts of light coming through the west and the east, and the classroom space too is kind of an issue.
I know we keep talking about the windows, and I'm just concerned. Would you consider looking at some sort of uniform, possibly automated window covering system? For a couple reasons. It obviously, you talk about glare and then needing it to be dark, and then we talk about the neighbors, and then there's also the bigger picture of the overall view, the streetscape view. Suddenly you could have, if you've got that much square footage of window, you could have it look like an eyesore with all different variations going on with those windows, in terms of what's covering them or not at different times.
In one automated blind system, it became much more commonplace than they used to be, and they're very easy to do. And the reason I hesitate to say yes, we could do that, is because putting that implementation of that system is pretty difficult to get teachers to do all the same things all the same times. And I know that you can preset it to the clock, and it can automatically do that. We will have blinds in these. The chances of us having automated blinds in here are actually pretty good, because just if it takes 3 minutes every day for a teacher to go and do the blinds, that actually adds up over time. So she or he can get a hit button and go down. So most likely there will be some automated blinds to that. But you're going to have, if we're teaching a physics class in here where we need it all dark, and here we want it all light, they're not going to line up all the time. I'm actually okay with that.
Okay.
There's different stuff in the building. I mean, that's what's happening.
I get it.
I just think that this is a building about science. I want to see different experiences happening in every different space. And, it is chaotic inside. It's messy. It's not, it's not all clean. It's not all organized and all that. And that's part of the interesting thing about the building. That's why I want to make it different than the sort of regular traditional building, because it's about science. If it was, it was an English building or something, I would think we would be more regimented, or math, maybe we could have it all regimented. I don't know, that's not a very good answer for you, I know.
Peter, what are we seeing as we look through the glass? I'm assuming it's clear glass.
Yeah.
What are we seeing in the ceiling as it's running?
And the ceiling plane of that, you're going to see the structure of the concrete deck. You're going to see acoustic pads inside there that have overtop the seating spaces. You're going to see kids in there and furniture. You're going to see a light strip, a hanging light strip on either side, which is uplighting that plane, which is, you're going to see that light piece of that. And you're going to see the skylight. You can kind of see it through there in through the center. And you're going to see the stair that's sort of this exposed stair that runs down this side. And you're going to see through the rest of the building to the other side. I mean, this rendering probably doesn't do it justice. It's really going to be more transparent than that. to the other side.
Is any of that space open to below?
Yeah, they're, in the center there's a
The
hole.
very center? Okay.
Yeah, there's a hole in the center
Okay.
of it.
So that's what that is on the?
Yeah,
okay, just checking.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And is that entire surface area, the entire area have a skylight?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be one big, it's a rectangular space, it's in there, in the center.
So, Peter, if your ceiling is a concrete slab,
Correct.
the ceiling and the structure is a slab, and then your window frame is coming all the way to the underside of the
Right.
structure,
Right.
right? So, would you then have acoustical?
We'll have
tile? I
acoustic,
mean, that would
we
come
have
down
clouds.
below the windows.
Yeah, no, with inside that, it won't come right out to the edge of the window. Actually, over top in the classroom spaces, about 3 feet off the edge of the window, we'll have a cloud that's dropped down, which is acoustic space over top where the kids sit. And basically, so it's this cloud that hangs over. And you'll have the same thing over top some of the center area, where basically put acoustics where we need it, right where the kids are.
And then the lighting is just surface lighting?
In the center corridor, in the classroom space,
No, in the center, the hall.
in the center, we're going to have sort of combination. We'll have some lighting in that acoustic cloud, which will be downlight over that, and then we'll have some hanging lighting along that edge will light up.
Okay.
that
I
space.
guess that goes to what John was saying then too. I mean, if there isn't, space between the top of the window and the structure, then, you're right up.
You're gonna
against the
be
structure, so you're gonna see,
You'll see how it
ceiling
works.
elements coming down and overlapping your windows.
Yeah. No, I mean you're going to see how the
Okay.
building's built.
You're gonna see the
You're going to
sprinklers,
see
Sprinklers and
sprinkler heads.
everything.
all that. Yeah, which I think makes sense. In this building. Ductwork,
and
all that,
everything.
yeah. I mean, that's what makes this building a little bit challenging to build, is that we gotta organize all that. It's just not haphazard, to that. And actually with the precast panels on the exterior too, all electric and everything is gonna be all in those panels. Yeah, I think it's important that you see all those systems, so kids and everybody, and the nice thing is you get that precedence. When you drive down there, you see it in Corbin, in Walter Nash's building.
Right.
I mean, you really get appreciation for the amount of thought he put in, putting all those systems in there, and really understanding how that works.
And then this bridge that connects the two buildings, I'm assuming that's a horizontal band that's gonna line up with your horizontal band?
Right.
That's gonna be aluminum or concrete?
On that piece, it'll be concrete. It'll be precast concrete.
That will be?
Yeah.
And then it looks like there's a couple of piers coming
Those
down.
are precast.
Those are precast as well?
Right. I'm kind of fortunate that, I don't know where Todd went, but he left. Must be time to pick up the kids. Todd's really good at pouring in place concrete structures. So, I mean, it's kind of fun to work together in terms of building this building, because I don't think if we didn't have a relationship that we do, I wouldn't think about doing it in poured in place concrete. But I think, because they've done a bunch of work like that and understand how it's going to be constructed, how it's put together, and some appreciation of what the finish is when you do precast or poured in place concrete, makes some sense. And I think, again, it's a tie to the original other modern building, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Peter, on the south elevation, on the first floor, the doors into the new building don't seem to be centered. Is that just a computer glitch, or?
In the link?
Yes.
Yeah, they aren't because of the stair going down the basement.
Oh, okay.
That's what actually, the reason they aren't is a couple. One is that you can see, you're talking about this one right here. Actually, these doors are centered on our building, and you come through this door and it's centered on the skylight. That's the hole in this. There's a stair that goes down, which we'd like to do is to make the light come down here and spill down the stairs as you go down to the basement, so it's not like going into a dark basement.
Okay, sure.
When you come across here, it does actually line up with the structure of this building. When we built this building, we didn't know we were going to build this building, so we didn't really line it up, right, exactly. It's a little bit off on this building, though. You're right, the pilaster on this side is not exactly the same there, on that. We looked at pushing and pulling this building, like pushing it this way or pushing it down, and we felt like one is as important of the line, and actually the amount of open space that we have and we've created in the bottom of the building from the edge of the road to the face, we felt that getting enough park space on that backside that really uses makes sense. So there was quite a bit of discussion in terms of, you know, how far this is this way and this way in terms of creating these spaces in between, and actually I don't show the dorm here, but those spaces too. So, you know, it wasn't just like plopped. You know, there's a lot of like sort of minutia in terms of moving it into the right spot.
I've got another question back to the windows.
Is there a limit? I think there's a
metal
limit
trim on the windows. Is that's a silver color?
Excuse me?
The metal trim on the corner windows, is that what color? Is that
No,
silver?
that's going to be brown. That's going to be
similar
brown.
to the gutters.
Yeah, the
Okay.
same. That's all going to match. Yeah, I think they might have shown. Did you see? Did I write it on there? It was going to be silver, or what did it say?
Just says aluminum storefront.
Oh, okay, no, it's going to be brown.
Would be brown. Okay.
And the
All right.
steel beams that come out from the building, I'm sorry, the steel beams are also brown? Or
Those are going to be brown too. I originally had thought about this as being metal color and to have them as metal. I mean, what we really like to do is build that out of a really expensive German, you know, 4-prong glass system, but we really can't afford it. So, which would be steel, but we're really just using a mullion-less cover to get the slickness of it. So, it's you know, it's part of the economics of building the building in terms of how that turned out.
I was going to ask, with this facility, would this result in an increase in any staff or faculty or students where it seems as if parking is a little bit tight as it is?
No, this is not, there isn't any plan for the increase enrollment. I mean, this is just really, if you go and look at their existing science facility, it's really just updating a program to really the level it needs to be.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So then I see it's a 13-foot basement. What are you going to do with all the dirt? You got so much dirt already.
We're going to take it away. We're building a berm in southern, I mean, we're going to take it off-site. Yeah.
Bury it,
What's that?
bury it.
Bury the dirt. No, yeah, we have to take it off-site, yeah. Actually, this is built on a big muck hole. I mean, the structure underneath in the basement here it's going to be 2-foot thick slab.
Yeah.
When they built this, the original estate, they infilled this with sludge. And so this whole building over here is on caissons, about 25 feet deep. This building, the soil's good enough, we can put a big structural mat on it and put it on top of that.
One other thing I was wondering is, I know in the master plan it's been talked about before about a secondary access. Is that still on the plan, or is that kind of shelved, or?
It's really an impossibility because it's out of our control. I mean, you know, we don't own the property.
Yep.
And you know, so there's different opportunities, but it's not within our control of that. It would make sense, you know, and I think that it's pure economics. If somehow it became available, I think the academy would take advantage of that.
Also, what I was thinking about is, you don't show any foundation plantings on this building. Are you thinking there's a need for it or not?
You know, if you look at the landscape plan, we have grasses along this edge act as a foundation planting. And it's sort of this ongoing discussion that we're going to have with the city's arborist and all that about. I don't, actually. I don't think it's a building that really you do need to have foundation plantings. I think it makes sense on this north elevation that we plant some ornamental grass that sort of acts like a foundation planting on this side. Here we have a grove of trees that are right in front of the building that have it. You know, I think we have some ground cover here, but there really isn't any, you know, small bushes along that edge. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, you do have it at the dormitory to the north, and I think there is also at the north end of Cressy that there is some foundation plantings, but I was just wondering what your thoughts were on it.
I mean, you know, I really want to make the tree species that we pick out there, I want to make, you know, ginkgo trees has kind of made sense to me because it's kind of prehistoric tree. It gives off an oil. It makes sense. All the leaves drop in a couple of hours. It does a lot of scientific stuff. It seems to me that we want to put plants around this building that are scientific that make sense. I'm not sure if foundation plantings makes sense from a scientific standpoint.
Sure.
So I don't know that we'll really need it. You know, I mean, I guess, you know, to me, the ornamental gardens in this building are from the historic ornamental gardens. So you go back, you have these ornamental gardens, you have cutting beds, you have all those sorts of things. And in front of the school, when you pull in, that center island ought to be the same sort of detail work. These buildings, I mean, one is that it's, the academy only has a certain extra, you know, amount of maintenance to, you know, sort of keeping it maintained. You know, we're trying to like see long-term, you know, is it going to make sense? And I think we're trying to look at it from the campus-wide to get this plan that really works for them for long-term maintenance. But yeah, I'd like to look at like the idea of ornamental grasses being our is our foundation planting.
Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, at this time, we would allow the public testimony. Is there anyone from the public who would wish to speak regarding this petition? Okay, seeing none, would the petitioner care for any comments or final words? And I don't think there's a limit.
I'm all good, thanks.
Great. Do we have any final questions? Okay, so at this time, we will take it to discussion at the board level. I can open it up with, if we feel we might want some more information on we had a lot of questions that led to what could be a lot of details that could be significant in the look of the building, so I wasn't sure if we felt like we wanted more information on a lot of items.
Well, one of the items I would think might be the connecting link and how that transition from that Cressy building to this facility.
Yeah, I think the link, the whole ramp itself, we talked about the gutters, the concrete walk, downspouts, some lighting.
The window details. on the
Windows,
second
exactly.
floor.
Well, I think Peter answered a lot of our questions. I think did a nice job presenting, Peter. I think the general design of the building in itself, yeah, but as part of the campus, it works. I think the materials, choice of materials, the colors, and some of the reveals in the Pilasters, I think those are all working as well. I think the only, I think the link is something that is far enough back into the shadows and has enough landscaping in front of it that it becomes less critical that it be massaged or manipulated. I think the concept of a horizontal band with a series of windows like you have in the building is appropriate. The transition as far as a ramp or steps or whatever that might be happening in there, if it's interior, I would be less concerned about it. If it starts to have a representation to the outside of the building, with a particular window being not as low to the floor as the others or whatever, then I think I would turn them, try to focus the microscope a little bit on those. I think we had talked about the change in plane from the panels to the band board that don't become monolithic, but there is a demarcation between the two that's expressed in plane would satisfy my concern on the design. And I would only suggest that the the steel brackets that are supporting the glass be something other than brown. I think they should be a steel
Metal
looking
color.
or aluminum looking. I think that's a more appropriate color to blend with the glass. I think that element shouldn't try to blend with the building, but, you know, be something that's hanging on or different. So those would be my concerns, is the color of the steel part of the canopies, the change in plane on the panels. I'd like to see a frieze board, but I do understand now that the interior and the soffit working together, I think the perspective view of the soffit and being as heavy overhang as it is, gives me that horizontal band that I'm looking for there. If that was a less of an overhang, I'd be more concerned, but looking up at it and seeing it and seeing it as white instead of the fascia board as being brown, I think that satisfies my concern for seeing another horizontal band there. So I can support this project as I see it here.
I'm very supportive as well. I think you've done a nice job, Peter, of combining the use of this building with the rest of campus. I like the fact that you're exposing some of these systems and, you know, the light that you're bringing in the classroom, et cetera. I think it's great. LEED certification. I really think it's a nice use, and it's going to blend well with the campus as well. So I'm very supportive.
I also think Peter did a really nice job of explaining, you know, his building and the choices that he made. You know, my initial impression of it was, you know, the Apple Store meets the Armour Estate. So there was some kind of, you know, the roof form with that simple box of a building. I had some, you know, initial issues with. I think you clarified that pretty well for me. I did think that because it is a science building, that you did have an opportunity to even do something, you know, more state-of-the-art or interesting, you know, like how Walter Netsch really went out on a limb with his building. There was, you know, the opportunity to do something, but to go in your contextual manner, I think is also appropriate. So you know, I can definitely support the project. I agree with John about the color of the steel at the entry. You know, something, you know, natural metal, you know, going with the glass, I think would be really appropriate, and you know, exposing all, you know, as much structure as you can in the interior workings is, you know, architecture and science goes hand in hand. It's a good way to go.
I can support it as shown. As far as the colors of the metal, sometimes the just an aluminum or a steel color, it doesn't stay that long. The anodized coloring lasts longer from a weather standpoint. But I think it's done a nice job, and I can support it pretty much as drawn.
I think you've done a good job of blending the contemporary with the traditional features of the campus. And you know, I'm a pretty traditional kind of person. And but I do think the design works really well given the purpose of the building. And I could support it.
Well, I agree with my colleagues up here, and did a nice job in presenting, and I appreciate taking the time to answer all the questions, so thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so amongst ourselves here, board, the question is, do we feel we need any more information to come back, or do we want some things confirmed and allow staff to do that, or have that on a consent? We did have some questions that, you know, I thought there were some good questions out there that were still a little bit nebulous coming back from the petitioner. So I wanted to be sure we had some clear definition of what we thought was acceptable from this point forward.
The only thing on the connecting link with a 1.5 difference in elevation between the two buildings, I'm not so sure that that roof plane will stay at the same elevation all the way across. So that's my concern, is how that transition is done.
Anyone else have?
I guess procedurally, is there, does the board feel it's, these are the kind of issues we can have Kathy and the staff look at and just confirm our concerns and work with the petitioner, or is it something that we want to come back
That's my question.
I would vote for the former. Personally, I think there's not enough here to sink our teeth into. It's my personal experience, I should say personal opinion, but open to others, certainly.
I'm comfortable with that as well.
And I think John brought up a good point that is so far back and there's enough trees in front of it. I don't think it's an issue. I think staff can handle that. I don't think we have to put this aside and have them bring it back another month.
I guess my only question would be to staff. Do you feel comfortable handling the details that we've questioned?
Yes, I think the various people on our staff can look carefully at those issues. The other option is for you to appoint a subcommittee. That's kind of a middle ground, not bringing it back to the full board. But if the board wants to have someone look at those details, you could certainly have two people meet with staff and review the final plans when it comes in. But that's, if you'd like us to do it, I think we have heard you and understand your concerns and can work with Mr. Whitmer and resolve those.
We can add conditions to our approval, but we don't want to encumber it with such a big list, maybe that it gets ridiculous too, but I don't know if I know staff is short-staffed now. I wouldn't necessarily want to encumber them with another subcommittee and the minutes and the process that goes into that. So I'd be comfortable with allowing staff to review their notes of this meeting with maybe the chairperson and to see that they're all there and then let them cut them loose.
Fair enough. Okay. That being said, do I hear a motion regarding this petition?
I move to approve.
Can we add just two specific conditions that we had discussed it before that staff had recommended?
Yeah, I was looking for those.
Okay, one was the looking at the existing vegetation as a buffer to the homeowners' properties, and the other was the staff to look at the interior fixtures, lighting.
And drainage.
Well, the drainage has already been taken care of in the master plan.
All right, then I would move that we approve based on those conditions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is passed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the board on any non-agenda items. Seeing that we have none, our final item is additional information from staff, and I believe we have from staff a schedule for our meetings for 2012.
That schedule should have been in your packets, and I believe that the July 5th date should have an asterisk by it, because it is a change from your regular meeting date. I believe that is a Thursday instead of a Wednesday. Wednesday is July 4th. Normally, when we present the schedule, we do suggest cancellation of the August and December meetings. However, because the activity level at your various meetings has really been kind of erratic, we've ended up canceling other meetings. And I think at this point, if the board is open to it, we'd rather schedule meetings for all of the months. If, for instance, you didn't have agenda items in June and July, and then you had a canceled meeting in August, that really pushes someone further. So we recommend that we go ahead and schedule meetings. If we don't have agenda items, of course, we'll cancel the meetings.
I think that's fair. Okay.
The only question I had is when is Lake Forest Day?
First Wednesday of the month.
August.
I thought it was first Wednesday.
The first Wednesday of
It's
August.
the first Wednesday. Is that, does anybody have a calendar? Is that the first?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, we will need to modify that.
Ooh, good one.
So meet at the beer garden.
Yeah, right? Just come on in with your petitions. We'll entertain them there.
Come on in.
Excellent, okay.
So if that August 1st is a Wednesday, then I would suggest the Tuesday. You just want to move it to the 2nd at this point?
That's the current.
August 2nd, Thursday?
Yes,
Thursday.
yes, Thursday.
Thursday, not Tuesday.
Yes, you're right. Because Tuesday doesn't work because it's the.
The same.
The
Right.
pre-Lake Forest.
Pre-party.
And of course, we will always poll before the meetings and alert the petitioners if we don't have a quorum.
Okay, great, thank you.
But at least we can get this published.
Excellent. Okay. Do we have any other items?
I don't.
Okay. Well, seeing this is our last meeting of the year, happy holidays, happy new year. Great. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Do I hear a motion
So moved.
Second. I'll second it.
to adjourn? So, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, meeting is adjourned.